Alright guys, I'm about ready to reload some 243 brass here, and I thought, what the heck, I'll do a video. So, I got to reload this stuff because I need to use it for groundhog hunting. We're kind of into the heat of it now, but anyways, at the same time, I wanted to run a little bit of an experiment. Now, I've never done this before, but I wanted to measure all of my case volumes for this, set of 50 cases. And two reasons, really. Number one, this stuff is seasoned brass. It's working really good. And I kind of want to see what the range is. What's my min, my max, what's that total range on all these cases. And then the second thing is, I know case volume matters, at least in, custom chambered guns, custom rifles, bench rest, F-class, fancy stuff. But I'm really interested to see if it makes a difference at all in your run-of-the-mill, average Joe factory gun. So I'm going to load some of these up. Well, I should say this. I'm going to measure the volume in all these guys, get the range, and then what I thought I would do is pick 5 cases that are all the same, load those things up with my standard, reloads, right, for this guy, and then pick 5 that represent the whole range of the entire population here, and reload those things up, and then shoot the 5-shot groups at 300 yards and see if something sticks out. Volume. And how I'm doing this is with these 21st century shooting primer pocket plugs. And again, this is the first time I've ever done this, so I think this is pretty neat. I'm really interested to see how this turns out, but I'm going to use some 91% alcohol for this, just to kind of help with the consistency of the measurement. So I'll get these guys all measured, and maybe I'll put together a chart or something so we can see how these guys turned out. Alright, so pretty much here's how this is going, right? Put the plug in, and what I'm doing is I'm really making sure that that is a tight fit, right? Obviously there's nothing in the case. Put that on there, tear this guy out. It's already reading 0. And let's see if I can do this without making a mess. Basically, what I'm trying to pay attention to is I do not want to get any drops on the case, right, on the outside, because I don't want to count that weight as part of the volume of the case. So I'm just very carefully filling this guy up. And the nice thing about using the 91% alcohol is that you don't get that huge, lensed fisheye at the top, that meniscus, right? And I just kind of check the reflection. Sorry for the audio. Check the reflection of the light. I really want this guy to be, I want the volume to be flat as possible. So sometimes you just got to give it just a little bump, right? And that's just maybe a touch too much. Now I'm kind of proud. So, just kind of pull that out. Yeah. 43.90. And that's pretty much it. Just have to be careful about slopping it, right? So, so far, they're kind of all over the place. I'm a little surprised, but I guess it makes sense. Anyways, I'll throw a chart up here once I get done with these guys. Alright guys, so I've got all my volumes kind of figured out. And just to review the data here, so my average was 43.76 grains of 91% alcohol, right? And I'm not going to do the water conversion because it really doesn't matter. I use the same material, alcohol, for the whole thing. So, the weight volume is the weight volume. Anyways, so the average was 43.76. It maxed out at 44.28, and the minimum was 43.34. And it's actually, that's not very much, right? Half a grain here or there. It's not that big of a deal, or is it? But anyways, I have selected back here on the table, I have selected the winners. These guys up here are all 43.76s for volumes, and this is my motley crew. This has the min and the max, somewhere in the middle, and then another 43.76 right in the middle. So we'll test these 5 shots versus these 5 shots, 300 yards, and I'm going to shoot these things kind of in random order. In other words, I'm not just going to shoot these 5 first and then these 5, because the gun's going to be changing with temperature and everything else. So we'll just kind of randomize the shot count, or the shot order. Other than that, I think the only other thing is these guys will all be loaded up exactly the same. I mean, other than the volume is the only thing we're testing here. So it should be pretty fun. I'm going to get all this, I got to get all these loaded up. So I'll load all this up and we'll head to the range. All right, guys, got a little bench time today. We're going to test out our volume, case volume test. So I've got a chronograph here, which is really where the value is going to come from this test, I think. There's always room for error when we're trying to look at groups, but chronograph, hopefully, the sunlight's not going to make this thing go bonkers. It should be really valuable data. So we might learn something here. Instead of putting the phone at 300, I'm going to put it on the spot and scope, so I'll switch over, and I'll probably move this thing over to another bench so I don't get any shockwave effects. But, all right, I'm going to run this thing. We'll see what we get. All right, found a pen. Here we go. All right, guys, back from the bench here with this little volume, case volume experiment. So let's just review the groups real quick. So I guess the first thing to say is this page is the variable cases, and this page was the constant case volume. All right. So the group size, this is 300 yards, was 2.6 inches over here. The average velocity on these guys was 3163 with an extreme spread or range of velocity of 66 feet per second. Over here we have a 1.477 inch group. The average was 3158, and the extreme spread or range on that was 62 feet per second. So a couple comments about this. Number one, the conditions were perfect. Okay, it was the morning, there was no wind. I was a little bit caffeinated, but I mean, I was shooting well. I mean, I'm kind of a well-oiled machine this time of year. I'm shooting a lot, so there wasn't any pulled shots, is what I'm saying. I have no excuses on the groups, but I am a little disappointed in the groups. Okay, 2.6 inches at 300 yards. The gun's definitely done better than that. So it's something I'll have to kind of dig into a little bit. If you saw the last video, you'll know that my seating depth is now a little bit off because my throat has eroded a little bit. So, and of course I reloaded these things before I knew that. So I might repeat this experiment completely just to see if the groups tighten up, or, maybe something changes with the numbers. It really shouldn't though, right? Touching these guys off, they're going to go, whether the seating depth is 10 thou or 6 thou. I mean, I'm assuming these numbers are probably pretty clean. But I mean, you don't have to do a statistical analysis to understand or see that there's virtually no difference, okay, for this gun. There's no difference. I did do the stats on it, so you can see on the chart here, basically plotted, the blue and the red line is the shot count, and I'm labeling this, basically the controlled or constant volume versus the variable volume, and you can see how they go. It really, you always want to plot your data in terms of your shot order, which is how this is shown, because you want to look for trends in the data, right? If you get like 3 data points that are going the same direction, maybe there's something else going on. And really, I don't see that here. It's basically the first 2 shots were kind of cold bore shots, so they were a little bit higher in terms of their velocity, but really it's really close. There's not a lot of difference between these guys. If you look over the statistical analysis, I'm going to dork out here for a second. So we basically have 2 sample sets. We have, the constant volume, and we have the variable volume, right? So 2 groups. If you're going to do a comparison or an analysis of variance with 2 groups, 2 sample groups, you're going to want to use a student's t-test for this. Okay, if you want to compare variance of multiple groups, more than 2, right, you want to run like just an ANOVA or a z-test, right? So for this, we ran a t-test, and I got my confidence interval set at 95%. So basically, you run this thing through the test, and it spits out your results, and you can see that basically the rule of thumb is if the p-value is low, the null must go. In other words, it fails, the hypothesis fails the test. You can see in the lower right-hand corner what's circled here is 0.7915 based on our 0.05, our 95% confidence interval. We're way high. So there is no significant difference between these 2 groups. And the reason why I decided to go with this is because the statistical analysis is just because, there's a lot of opinions about things like this. And when there are opinions, there's emotion, right? And having data and trying to explain how I looked at this thing, kind of takes the emotion out of it. It's like, we ran this thing through our stats program, and we got what we got. So no significant difference for this rifle being a factory rifle between case volumes. Case volume does not seem to affect this thing, at least in the range that I tested. Now, I don't think this range that I have on these Starline cases is terrible, right? I don't think these guys are too dissimilar, right? You can see that from the previous chart. So there you have it. Like I said, I might redo this test again, see what we get, see if the results kind of change. But actually, I learned something. If this holds true after a repeat, I can feel confident about the performance of this gun and these cases. I can just load these things up, and I don't care about my case volume. My case volume is close enough, okay? So, which is good. I mean, it doesn't kind of follow maybe some of the opinions or some of the other data that others have with different rifles. But for this gun, under these conditions, with these cases, doesn't matter. Okay. Anyways, I love this type of stuff. I have a bunch of things like this that I want to continue to do. But the other thing is, too, this is the first time I have done kind of this volumetric case study sort of thing. So what I want is some feedback. If you guys would recommend something else, or see something that kind of like, basically throws my assumptions out the window or my calculations out the window, I've done something wrong, let me know. I'm here to learn, right? So keep that in mind in the comments. Leave me a comment. That'd be great. So hey, thanks for watching.